Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, we're going to check in with these AFC South teams. It's definitely been a wild ride for some teams, and other teams been smooth sailing for the most part. But we're going to get into that more in a second. I want to thank you everyone for tuning in to this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube and see me, or you actually are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, those different places. I would, advise you to subscribe, or go ahead and go ahead and hit that alert button as well. So that way you can catch every episode whenever it drops. It may be me and a guest. You never know unless you tune in, right? All right. So thank you all for tuning into this episode. We're going to get to, like I said, the AFC South, talking about the AFC South and what's going on there, and kind of getting into teams and how they're doing and how they're not doing as well. But before we do that, like we open up every show, we're going to do the Get Off Your Chest segment. And on this episode, I want to talk about officiating. Now, everyone has their issues with officiating. Everyone does. Everyone talks about, oh, the officiating so bad, this. The most recent issue is with the WNBA Finals. Game 5, it comes down to a last second. The Liberty are down. The New York Liberty are down 2 points to the Minnesota Lynx. They toss the ball in bounds to Breonna Stewart. She catches it, appears to have potentially traveled, gathers herself, goes up, and then there's a foul called. Now, plenty said there wasn't a foul. There's others that said there was a foul. I guess whatever you want to see or call is what it is. If you feel like the referee missed the call, then fine. If you feel the referee didn't miss the call, then that's fine as well. But it is what it is, and it happened. Foul was called. Stewart hits both free throws. They go to overtime, and eventually the Liberty win the game. Of course, not the referee, but the actual coach from the Minnesota Lynx, Cheryl Reeves, went off in the press conference and gave a kind of a backhanded congratulations to the New York Liberty as well in doing so. And plenty have talked about how the referees are this, the referees are that, the referees this, that, and the other. Okay. Now, here's what I'm going to say. I know it's not popular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. You still had a chance to win the game, Minnesota Lynx. Let me explain. True, that call could have went a different way. It didn't go in your favor. But you also have to remember the entire one of their worst games. And they probably shot, I would say, probably worse than they did in any other game in that series, in that game. I know the second half, they didn't shoot the ball very well. They had control of the game. However, it began to slip, and they allowed the New York Liberty back in the game. I say all those different things to say that if you are a good team, there is going to be some misrefereed calls that happen in any game because referees are not perfect. They're human. But a good team is going to still win a game. Winners will still win games, even if calls are missed. Again, I'm going to say this again for everyone to hear me. Winners will still win games when calls are missed. For every missed call, you can think on maybe 5 or 10 things maybe a player could have done or didn't do that could have helped the team win the game. That's all I'm going to say on that, because every time it turns around, there's, the referees cost them the game. They called the game, this, and this. Where's the onus on the players to make the plays to win the game? Where is that on the set? I don't hear very many people talking about, well, the Lynx didn't shoot the ball well. Well, they didn't finish them off when they had them up. They didn't do this, didn't do that. I understand the responsibility of the officials, and I understand if they missed a call and all those different things. I totally get that. However, that did not cost the game. You also have to remember all the different things you did during the game that cost the game. Pretty simple. All right, that's the get off your chest segment for this episode. Had to talk about that. It seems like every year I talk about the referees or something happened and people getting up in arms about it and things like that. But I had to address that. Of course, we have someone tuning in. We got Brian tuning in. Said, Mike, the Jags can turn it around. I'm going to talk about the Jaguars. Hadn't quite made it there yet, but hey, thanks for the comment, Brian. But yeah, we're definitely going to get into teams like the Jaguars and teams like the Titans, the Texans, and the Colts as well. Hey, why not delay? Let's start off with the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Titans aren't necessarily where some thought they would be. They've only won one game this season. That was against the Miami Dolphins, and that was on Monday Night Football. Yeah, that was a game where Tua was not playing. Tyler Snoop Huntley was the starting quarterback for the Dolphins. The Dolphins' offense looked pretty bad that game. The run game couldn't get going. It was a rough one, but the Tennessee Titans were able to go down there and pull off a win. Okay, we're going to start off with some of the positives that are going on with the Tennessee Titans team. The Tennessee defense is only giving up 272.2 yards per game, which is first in the NFL. Yes, again, they're only giving up 272.2 yards per game, which is first in the NFL, which is really good for a defense that has a lot of new pieces going along with it, especially in the secondary. Definitely a good thing, especially, where they were last year, defending the pass and all those different things. Because last year, in the third down conversions, they were one of the worst teams stopping third down conversions. So, yeah, so that's a positive. Now, offensively, you're getting pretty solid production from Tony Pollard. So I got to give him props there. He's definitely filled his role in what they're asking him to do. Now, could he have probably had more yards in some instances? Yes. But then again, that doesn't all solely on him. It is, of course, the offensive line and Tony Pollard, not just Tony Pollard and them. Simple. All right. Now, of course, we've talked about the positives. We always got to talk about the negatives. Now, the negatives, they're next to last in yards per game in terms of offensively with 253.9 yards per game that they're averaging in terms of total offense. It's not good. It's not good. Only averaging 17.7 points per game. You're not going to win many games not averaging 20 points. And one of the big issues, of course, everyone wants to talk about Levis, and of course, he has made his mistakes and things like that. 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and of course, Rudolph has 1 touchdown and 1 interception as well. So it isn't like he's playing totally way above him as the backup when he got his opportunities. So, I'll give him that in the Miami game. But in the Buffalo game, it isn't like he played way above him. He did make some. He did, play solidly, but he also made key mistakes as well. So there we go. Let's get that out of the way. Also, -8 in the touchdown. The turnover margin, which is huge. You can't be negative in the turnover margin and think you're going to be a winning team. It just cannot happen. It doesn't mathematically. It doesn't happen a lot. It's an anomaly, I would say, for that, turnover margin to be negative and you actually still win ball games or have a winning record. So that's there. Let's see. They have probably the worst turnover margin in the NFL. So let's look to some things that they could do better going down the rest of the season, because we're inching towards the halfway point of the season right now. One thing they could do better is basically, offensively. You got to create more offense, value the football. Got to do that. Turnover ratio is pretty horrible. Defensively, they haven't really created a lot of turnovers, which that has to be concerning if you're Brian Callahan, head coach of the Tennessee Titans. And make winning plays. Now, for those that aren't paying attention, even though the Titans have only won one game, they've been in pretty much every game. It's just been certain plays that have kind of, I guess, either turned the tide or cost them the game as well. The latest example being the Buffalo Bills game. They were up 10-7, fourth down play. They go for it, and they do not get it. They get stacked up not once, but twice on third down and fourth down. That game changed the momentum and the trajectory of that game, and Buffalo went on to cruise towards a win in the end. But those plays like that where they're not making during those statement times is costing them as well. So that's my thoughts on the Tennessee Titans so far. Not necessarily where some thought they would be. However, there is more of the season left, and you never know what could happen when it comes to the NFL. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to go over the Indianapolis Colts schedule and how they've done so far this season, the positives and negatives and what they can do better. This and more on Touring the AFC South after the commercial break.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off of these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get this the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South. I just went over the Tennessee Titans and their start to the season, but of course, I got to talk about the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts right now are, I believe, second in the division. They have a 4-3 record despite Jonathan Taylor. The positives, I will say. Let me go to the positives. I kind of almost skipped over my little notes here. Got a little, I guess, revved up. But, Colts, let's go over the positives right now for them. They're 4-3 despite Jonathan Taylor injured with an ankle right now. Of course, he's missed the last two games. And of course, MPJ, which Michael Pittman Jr., playing injured and not necessarily his usual self right now. I mean, first couple weeks he was kind of missing in action a little bit. Last couple weeks he's kind of showing up a little bit more. But yeah, he's he's a number one receiver for them. He has to show up a little bit more, in my opinion. That's just my thoughts there. Hey, Alec Pierce, it's great that he's showing up, but the guy that starts drinking the passing game for the Colts is Michael Pittman Jr., and they need more from him. Currently, right now, he's there. I'll say that he's there, but he's got to be better. Defensive wise, what we're gonna, that's my positive, and then of course, Jonathan Taylor does play, and the offense runs through him, in my opinion, and he's definitely done some things when he is out there on the field. Just got to shake this ankle injury, and get back out there on the field for his team, and hopefully for the Colts fans and for the Colts organization, he's able to do so pretty soon. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, definitely a positive that they're finding ways to win despite their stars either not being injured or not playing up to the capabilities that they have, within that team structure. All right. Now let's go to the negatives. All right, here we go. Anthony Richardson. Now, I will say this. Anthony Richardson has great potential. He can still be a great player, and he's still learning. That's one thing we have to remember. He's probably playing a lot more. They thought maybe he would be ahead of where he is currently now because he's in year 2. But year one was pretty much an injury riddled year. They got ended with a shoulder injury and surgery. So essentially, this is his rookie year. Keep that in mind. He didn't even play 4 full games last year. He's currently 49 of 101, 48.5% completion percentage, 3 TDs and 6 touchdowns. Pretty bad sounding so far. But these are the growing pains you have when you start a young quarterback. Comes with the territory. It's not always going to look like CJ Stroud and show up and boom, he's the guy. It's also not going to always also look as bad as what it did with Bryce Young. Now, I wouldn't say, that's on Bryce Young, but just saying, in terms of numbers wise and things like that. So, Richardson is not, as bad, but he's also not as great right now either. So, that's something to take a look at and see how he matures and grows as the season goes on. But right now, not necessarily playing the greatest of football, but, there is always hope there. That is eternal. And, again, he hadn't even made a full season worth of starts yet in the NFL. So I would say still continue to give him time. He will develop. We'll see what happens as he develops. But yeah, right now the numbers are pretty rough. And, of course, injuries have been key for him. Staying healthy is huge for Anthony Richardson. And so he can get those reps and get better. Another thing I want to flip over is defensive-wise, the rush defense. Woo. Colts. They're giving up 159.9 yards per game. Yikes. Let's just give you an example. I just want to kind of run down their results this season, just to kind of give you an example of how bad the rush defense has been. Joe Mixon, first game, week 1, 30 carries, 159 yards, 1 touchdown. Week 2, Josh Jacobs, Green Bay Packers, 32 carries, 151 yards. Now, week 3, they had a good week versus the Bears. Week 4, kept the Steelers pretty much in check in the run game. Week 5, Tank Bigsby, Jacksonville Jaguars, 13 carries, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And this one, let me throw this one out there. Tony Pollard, when they played against the Titans, they won the game. But Pollard had 17 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown. And that touchdown, let me just paint the picture for you. It was 3rd and 19 from the Indianapolis 23-yard line. The Titans were within field goal range, and they were way away from a first down. They ran a draw play just to gain more yards. Tony Pollard rips right through the Colts defense on 3rd and 19 and runs 23 yards for a touchdown. Bad defense. Now, Devon Achane, 15 carries, 77 yards against Miami in the win for the Colts. Not necessarily the greatest, but not necessarily the worst in terms of how they defended the pass in that game. The run in that game, I should say. So they have to be more consistent defending the run. You cannot consistently win. You're 4-3 now, but eventually that's going to catch up to you that you're giving up the most yards in the NFL per game on the ground. Can't be a great defense doing that. Gus Bradley, I'm going to need you to come up with some answers. I'm going to need Grover Stewart. Hey, be in there. I know that Buckner has been out, and I understand he has been out for the last few games. However, he was in there in the game against Joe Mixon. He was in there game against Josh Jacobs. So you can't just say that missing DeForest Buckner and him not being there is the issue in the running game, because it's not. There's lots going on, and it's up to Gus Bradley to figure out what it is. Now, things to do for the Colts. Figure out the run defense. We just talked about that. Gus Bradley, like I said, the ball's in your court now. Get your stars going. Now, Michael Pittman Jr. is your star at wide receiver. I think you need to find a way to kind of get him going, maybe force feed him a little bit more. That may help. Also, let me go with be solid somewhere defensively. Now, here's what I'm going to say. Colts are not solid against the run. Now, against the pass, they've lost a few players back there, and now they've had their moments where they've done well, but they've also had their other moments where they make you like scratch your head, like no, 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 no. So, got to be solid somewhere. The best thing will probably be solid in the run defense, but we'll see what happens when it comes to that and the Indianapolis Colts. Going to slide over, of course, to the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to talk about them real quick. Okay, this, of course, got to dip into the tour in the AFC South inbox, and got a comment from the Not Bland Show. Said the new background. Yeah, hopefully you like it. It's a little different. Try to do something just a little bit different instead of the usual stuff. So, hey, maybe you'll see this background a little more. Maybe you'll see a different one. You got to stay tuned to see. All right. Now, as far as the Jaguars, we're going to go into the Jaguars and their season so far. Of course, they just won their second game over in London versus the New England Patriots. Now, positives. Tank Bigsby. He's averaging the most yards per carry in the NFL when he gets his opportunities. Always some good stuff there. Didn't expect that from Tank Bigsby this year. He's actually in both their wins, 13 carries, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns versus the Indianapolis Colts. In their second win versus the Patriots, 26 carries, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he's done some things. Another guy that has definitely done some things, Mr. Brian Thomas Jr. He of Louisiana State University, or LSU. Now, he's top 5 in receiving yards currently with 513 yards. And he's actually tied for 8th in touchdowns, for 4 touchdowns. And he's doing this all on 30 receptions, which isn't even like 28th in the NFL. It's really down there. It's amazing how he continues to threaten defenses and take advantage of his opportunities. He hasn't had a ton of opportunities, but he's top 5 in receiving yards, and he's top 10 in touchdowns. That's an impact rookie right there. He's definitely getting done, and he's definitely keeping up the tradition and the lineage of the wide receivers of LSU coming into the league and wrecking shop. I mean, of course, before him, you got Justin Jefferson, and then you had, of course, his teammate in college at LSU, Malik Neighbors. But of course, he got injured recently. He'll be back. Hopefully, well, he was back this past Sunday, so hopefully he'll be back to his normal self in terms of how he does pretty soon. Now, of course, we did have a question in the Tour in the AFC South inbox. Let's go to that real quick. It says, "Do you think the Jaguars' struggles rest on Doug Peterson?" Well, so yeah, some of it does, but we're going to go into a few things in a minute that I think I'm looking at this team and like, okay, what's going on? All right, the negatives. Wasn't the start they wanted so far. Of course, that's pretty much a negative. You don't start the way you start. You think people start. It's basically people not living up to expectations. You're thinking that Eric Armstead, you're going to bring him in and do great things. He hadn't necessarily done it that well. You think of Trevor Lawrence taking the next step. He's been his usual self in terms of, good some games, bad some others, and kind of in between in other games. Christian Kirk's kind of gone milk carton status in some games, if not more. That's not good. Evan Ingram's back, and when he's back, Trevor Lawrence has his security blanket, and he's been solid every time he's touched the field. Gabe Davis not necessarily living up to the expectation. He had a 2 touchdown game. However, in London, the previous game they played. However, against the Bears, and it was if you pay attention or watch Jaguars fans, it was probably one of the more disappointing 2 touchdown games they had watched a receiver or player have for them, which says a lot because he scored 2 touchdowns, but he dropped 2 others. There you go. But yeah, it's just a lot of not thinking they were where they are, they're not where people thought they would be, basically, and a lot of that falls upon the people that they have brought in, the people that are there, and the people they have drafted to do different things as well. The O-line, they basically ran it back, brought Ezra Cleveland back, replaced the center. They had Luke Fortner with Mitch Morse. Now, Mitch Morse, I'm not saying everything's on him, but hey, he's doing the best he can. He's not necessarily playing horrible. When you move out to these offensive tackles, though, whole nother story there. Now we're looking at Anton Harrison. It seems like he's kind of regressed a little. I was talking to the student of the game, Kyle Nash, who does cover the Jacksonville Jaguars and writes for them for the Fan First website, I believe. And he definitely was speaking about, looked like Anton Harrison kind of regressed a little bit. And yeah, and of course Kyle was also on the train of let's not pay Cam Robinson, the other offensive tackle, an extension, which the Jaguars did. And he's not necessarily playing great either. So these two guys, as your offensive tackle, is not playing great, does not equal success for that offense either. Now, I know, that's got to be better. And I know, some people want to blame the offensive line for some of Trevor's struggles and along with, receivers dropping passes, which I get it. Receivers are going to drop passes, and they should be more accountable as well. However, you got to say some of that responsibility is on your quarterback too, to step up and be the leader as well and make sure it happens. No identity. Well, the identity actually starting to come into it now a little bit more, maybe more in the passing game, things like that. But in the running game, when Tank Bigsby is in there, it's humming. So, getting that identity of who your offense is, that helps as well. And also, the defense probably isn't what Jaguars fans thought it would be. Maybe they thought it would be better. But, Ryan Nielsen brought him in. They thought it was, he's going to take that defense to another level. Yeah, hasn't quite happened. I would say Josh Hines-Allen hasn't necessarily been the impact player that he was the last few seasons. So you have to wonder, what's going on there? Was the defensive coordinator last year that bad, or was it just a combination of the players and the scheme? I don't know what's going on, but, a new defensive coordinator, and now we've got what's going on there defensively, and sometimes it looks a mess. Really does. We're going to take another quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the Houston Texans. Of course, the Houston Texans are leading the AFC South. They've only lost 1-2 games. I don't know. Anyway, the Houston Texans are leading the division. And, of course, they got positives, but they surely got some things that are sticking out there like a sore thumb. We're going to talk about those and more after the break on Touring the AFC South.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. And like I mentioned before the break, we're going to talk about those Houston Texans. Now, the Houston Texans are leading the division, and, by all accounts, they are playing some pretty good football. Did lose to the Green Bay Packers recently, last-second field goal. Yeah, that didn't go well, but hey, they're still leading the division, still, I guess, molding into this new team they are with, new bells and whistles they have in certain particular places. One of those bells and whistles, that would be Mr. Joe Mixon. Now, Joe Mixon has been running the ball really well. Of course, he was out injured for a couple games, but he's averaging 100 yards per game on the ground, and he has 4 touchdowns. I mean, when he's in the game, their running game looks a lot better, because he's a savvy veteran that's seen these things and done these things. And he also is a guy that's a no thrills, but he's all definitely by the book what he does. Doesn't reverse field, doesn't do any of those things, sticks his foot in the ground, gets up the field, sheds some players in terms of tacklers trying to tackle him, and, makes positive yards. He doesn't fall backwards, basically. So, he's been a very, very positive addition for them. Of course, Nico Collins picked up where he left off last year. If you didn't know, he is the number one wide receiver on that team. I know plenty of people thought Stephon Diggs would come in and be the number one wide receiver. No. It's still Nico Collins now. Nico Collins is out right now with a hamstring issue. They did put him on IR a couple weeks ago. So he's probably nearing his return at this point. However, he is the number one wide receiver on that team. They can tell you it's Stephon Diggs that blew in the face, but no. He ain't it. It's just what it is. Not to say he's not productive and can't be a great wide receiver for the Houston Texans, which, by all accounts, he's done some good things. He's just not the number one wide receiver on that team. That just is what it is. Okay. So we talked about the positives. And of course, the record's positive because they're leading the AFC South. Let's talk about the negatives. Now, Tank Dell, he had 0 receptions versus the Green Bay Packers. Now, I wrote an article on touring the AFC South at WordPress.com about how important he would be for this offense, or his importance to the offense. And right now, they're not finding him very often, which is strange. I totally understand you have new weapons. You got Stephon Diggs. You got Joe Mixon. I understand that. Tank Dell's got to be involved, though. For this offense to be as great as it's going to be, they need Tank Dell. He is shifty, explosive, can take the top off defenses from time to time as well. And he just makes things happen when the ball is in his hands. Problem is, now you're trying to spread it out to Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Dalton Schultz. You got Joe Mixon running the football. I mean, Brevin Jordan isn't getting as many opportunities either, and he was definitely a talented backup tight end for the Texans last year. So it's just interesting, and it's going to be interesting to watch if they're able to get Tank Dell more involved, because I think for them to be, again, the best they're going to be, Tank Dell has to be involved in the offense. Definitely much, much more. All right, the O-line. Got to talk about the O-line now. They've done pretty solid in terms of the running game at times. Of course, obviously with Joe Mixon's numbers. But you notice that CJ Stroud is kind of running a little bit more, moving around a little bit more in the pocket and outside the pocket and running. Remember, we didn't see that a ton last year with the Houston Texans, which tells me something's going on up front with that O-line. They've got to become more solid in the pass blocking. They have to, because they have weapons, but you can't get to the weapons, especially on time and on schedule, if you're not blocking them up front. Now, are they having trouble with, simulated blitzes that's kind of going around in the fad right now in the NFL? Maybe. But they have to sort those things out, get them blocked up, and allow CJ Stroud to show his greatness from the pocket. That's pretty much what it needs to be. Because if they continue to struggle in the passing game, they're not in the passing game, but blocking up defenses in the passing game. If they continue to struggle there, they're not going to go as far as they think they're going to go. Again, if they continue to struggle in pass blocking, the Texans will not go as far as they think they will go. Because you also have to remember, you have a Kansas City out there. You have a Baltimore out there as well. I could probably name other teams, but you get the point. They need to be better in that aspect to take it to the level they want to go to. But yeah, that's what I got for this episode. Of course, AFC South check-in, checking the pulse of the different teams, and of course, I did go to the negatives. Let me also talk about things to get better. Of course, the offensive line's got to be better. Getting Tank Dell, force feeding him probably a little bit more early in the game, get him some touches to get him more acclimated to the game. Those are a couple things they need to work on, and then of course, continue to work on that opposite corner of Derek Stingley Jr. People are still targeting that guy. Just remember that. All right, this has been an episode of Touring the AFC South, episode 303, the AFC South check-in. If you don't know, I'm the host, Mike Patton. You can follow me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton82. That's MikePatton 82 on the artist formerly known as Twitter. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP, Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. Go ahead, subscribe, click the bell button so you can get the updates when the new show drops. They drop pretty much twice a week, folks. And also, if you want to subscribe to the Mike Patton Network, where Touring the AFC South resides, and click the bell again so that way you catch every single episode. I want to thank you all again for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. We're out. Peace.